Video. Yeah, deers did a lot of damage in there. Anyway, flowers are just very nice. Lots of rain lately, which has really sucked. So, but this is just such a nice little pile of stuff here. Got stuff there. And these big giant things will be flowering soon. Yeah, it's just moving right along. So anyway, Hover Blubber guy, let's do a response video to him on this. He was doing the subject of consent and the fact that you need consent, or else the standards are made higher for your conduct. So when you don't have consent to do something to somebody, you have to ensure that it's a gift. That kind of argument again. So anyway, Metamorph left a comment. Good old Metamorph, I'll add that. I do like Metamorph, but we really do disagree on this subject in a big way, and it just really shouldn't be a subject we disagree on. And he's doing the value relativism thing. So, wet. Yeah, like it hasn't rained like all day kind of stuff, but it's just that every day we've had these huge, horrible thunderstorms. Anyway, so to Hover Blubber. So the thought experiment goes something like the analogy, the metaphor. Your sister's got money on the table. If you go to her apartment, she's not home. You feel lucky and are going to Vegas. And you just have this feeling like it's going to be working out okay. And you want to take her money and go gamble with it. But you can't get her consent, but she's not home. And so what's your obligation? And it's not a great metaphor, but the obligation being explained is that if you're gambling with somebody else's money, somebody else's welfare, you got to be sure. You got to be really certain that you're not going to fuck it up. Because that money could be for surgery that's going to save her life, or something vital. And if that vital thing doesn't happen, she could be dead, or she could be horribly sick, or some horrible thing could happen to her if you lose that money. So it's not an incidental thing; it's a major thing. Let's say it's her mortgage to the house or something, just to make it a little richer. So anyway, Hover Blubber guy was basically arguing that if I don't take the money, somebody else is going to. And so he's sort of missing, he's made a mathematical error, a perceptual error, in thinking that because other people breed, somehow that'll have something to do with my sister. And that would be in another apartment, that somebody else will be stealing some other sister's money. And so the fact that some other guy is stealing their sister's money and gambling with it won't have anything to do with the fact of whether I do or not. My sister's money is safe. It's not affected by other people's behavior. My decision to procreate, for example, has nothing to do with other people's. There's no correlation between one person not procreating and other people procreating, as can be seen in Japan. People don't procreate and population stops growing. So it does happen. There's no automatic increase somewhere else or some inevitability to the theft of the money. And even if there was, like, so we could change the thought experiment and say the activity was actually rape or something. And so let's not make it a sister, let's make it you're just going to break into somebody's house and rape them for your pleasure. For some purpose. Who the hell knows what the purpose would be. And so to argue that because somebody else is going to rape somebody, you might as well do it, would be stupid. Because somebody else is going to commit a crime doesn't mean you should commit a crime. That's nonsensical. So I just think you've just missed the obvious. You've just made a mistake to think that an individual's decision not to procreate would somehow, it would be inevitable anyway. So if we just analogize, if we just state that the rule would be basically we're talking about a woman and a woman's decision to have her tubes tied or something. Once her tubes are tied, they're tied. She's not going to have a baby anyway. So her decision is actual in the world. It's not a fake or phony activity. It has a real consequence. There will be less sentience in the world if people choose not to have children, and that's just a fact. So I just think you made a fundamental error in breaking the thought experiment by creating this circumstance that somehow if I don't steal the money's going to get stolen anyway, and gambled away anyway. No. Is there anything to add on that subject? I mean, it just seems quite obvious that consent, when you don't have it, you have to be sure. So I use the analogy of a gift, but that's sort of the basic argument, that when you're doing something where you can't get consent, you've got to be sure you're giving something benign, something good, something harmless. You can't give somebody something harmful without consent. You can't expose them to risk without consent. And it has nothing to do with whether you can get consent. It just has to do with the fact that you don't have it. For whatever reason you don't have it. It doesn't matter what the reason is you don't have consent. Without it, you've got to meet a higher standard to expose them to risk, especially risk that can't be defended as being anything other than your idea. And it's no necessity. You're not coming to the rescue. So again, I've made these analogies before. You could justify exposing people to a certain amount of risk if you're on a rescue mission. But procreation is not a rescue mission. You're not saving something from harm by creating it. So you just can't make that argument. So anyway, I hope you understand the mistake you made, and I really don't want to pick on you for it. And I want to play your video because then it makes you sound stupid or something, but I'm just saying it's a fundamental error. It's just, the fact that other people's sisters are going to have their money stolen doesn't change my obligation to be sure I don't waste my sister's money. So anyway, airplane's not helping anymore. On to the metamorph thing. So his arguments are still the same old arguments that, flavors of ice cream are subjective, and no one's arguing that. Again, no one's arguing about the fact that we have subjective interpretations that cause us to have feelings subjectively. For we feel good or bad for sometimes for subjective reasons, not for objectively, absolutely rational reasons. Well, that's not even a good way to put it, because obviously, a 10-ton weight on your foot could almost be argued as being always absolutely bad unless your foot doesn't have any nerve endings or something. So there's no point in having idiotic distinctions. I mean, I could take 1,000 human beings on Earth, and if I put a 10-ton weight on their foot, 999 of them are going to report that this is a bad occurrence. So I think that's close enough to a point where we can start talking about something being an absolute in terms of its purity or something. It's met the necessary probabilistic and percentages to say it's a fact. But really the fact is that you feel, that's the argument being made, is that you feel, and that the sensations you feel come in two categories of good and bad. And yes, of course, there's one somewhere in the middle. You can't quite tell, like, I don't know, itchy or something, or ticklish, or some other kind of silly feeling. And, they're going to be harder to categorize. But we know that the basic idea is they fall on these two sides, and some of them just sit, on that fence, but that's, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's an irrelevant constituent to what's being discussed in terms of the real values. We certainly know the difference between pleasure and torture. And we all experience pleasure and pain. We all experience comfort and discomfort. Those categories exist as an absolute fact. They don't exist as a subjective fact for when we can disagree. There's no reasonable disagreement that sensations come in flavors of good and bad. There's no room for subjective interpretation. It's as real as the round earth. If you're going to say that uncomfortable sensations are good, that would be nonsensical. It would be nonsensical use of language. If you're going to say that pain and misery is not suffering or something, that's again just breaking language. The idea that there's a bad and a good way to feel is an absolute fact. That we will experience a good thing or we will experience a bad thing based on what we feel. Whether it's about ice cream or chocolate cake or whatever's making us feel is irrelevant to the conversation. No one's arguing about what makes you feel. They're only arguing about the fact that you feel is an absolute fact. The fact that you feel good and bad is an absolute fact. And the fact that it is better for you to feel good than bad in and of itself is an absolute fact. If there's only two things you can do, feel good and feel bad, and there will be no other consequence. You will just feel good or you will just feel bad. There will be no reciprocal effect. There will be no future effect. There will be no anything anywhere. There will just be either you suffering or you comfortable. It's just an absolute fact that it's better for you to be comfortable than uncomfortable. So I just don't see any logical way you can claim that it's not an absolute fact that feelings come in these two categories of good feelings and bad feelings, and that the badness is bad and that the goodness is good, and there's absolutely no point in saying that somebody can subjectively think a good feeling is a bad feeling. They can't. Okay? It's just nonsense. It's breaking language. You can't change the word wet to mean the word dry. Feelings have qualitative substance. They come with a quality, and the quality is written in the feeling itself. It is as it exists. It is plainly in the feeling itself. Terror. Well, like I said, I mean, you have to be so careful with the words you use because people just try to bend them into some kind of sadomasochist play. But the idea of pain has a specific definition, which is this obnoxiousness to your senses, this revolting, repulsive sensation. Those words qualify it well enough, I think. And we can know that that can be absolutely described as something you wouldn't be preferable. That if you're going to have two states, nothing in that or pleasure in that, that will lose. There'll be no way to logically pick the other alternatives. Logically pick that one instead of one of the alternatives. The alternatives are absolutely an improvement in the condition of the sentient organism. It just really can't be argued. This isn't about chocolate or vanilla ice cream. This is about the fact that our feeling experience has a reality. It has a qualitative description. You can know that it comes in these varieties. Our feelings are not neutral. They're not all vanilla. They're not all, vanilla. It's funny that I use that word. They're not bland or indistinguishable or unrecognizable as value-weighted different things. Suffering is value-weighted negative. Sensations that are repugnant to your consciousness are value negative weighted, and those that ease your consciousness or relieve your consciousness of that repugnantness or that repulsiveness are intrinsically and fundamentally improvements in your condition. Absolutely. If there was a scale of hot and cold, it would be a fact, okay? And pain is cold, we'll call pleasure hot, and the scale can be understood. The fact is we do feel cold and we do feel hot. There are real conditions. They're absolute facts that being in a place, you can put it on a scale. You're either in pain or you're not in pain kind of thing. You're either uncomfortable or you're comfortable. These are realities, and like I said, there are all kinds of places where you can be where you're feeling more than one thing at once, and the actual quality of your sensate experience is hard to qualify. But again, those neutrals aren't part of the subject. If we're talking about the chocolate and vanilla ice cream, you don't bring up banana cream pie, so let's not waste time throwing in some other measure. But it's a measurable, absolute truth that we have qualitative states of being. And to say they're not qualitatively different, that it doesn't matter whether I am suffering or I'm happy, is idiotic. I'm sorry, it's idiotic. You have to break language to do that, and you have to break logic to do that. Because the fact of it is it's a fact. I mean, I've experienced it, Metamorph. You really just can't tell me I don't know that I'm being fooled by pain and I've somehow misunderstood that it's really fun. No, I haven't misunderstood it. Its evolutionary purpose is to harass me, to be obnoxious. It does exactly what its purpose, its function in biology is. It's nasty, avoidable, repulsive, bad. It's just absolutely not the state a consciousness would want to be in. It's not the state anything would want to experience if it could be in pleasure instead. It's negative from neutral. Quite obviously, neutral is better than suffering. Anyway, again, I don't want to be insulting, but this really pushes credulity. To have to argue with people that seem rather sensible that suffering sucks. Absolutely, not as a ice cream preference. That suck is a real concept, and that suffering fits into the concept of suck. It's just an absolute fact. Suffering belongs in the concept category suck, bad, negative, not desirable. Don't choose it if you have something else to choose. That category. Don't choose it if you have something else to choose. That's what it fits in. It's an absolute fact that it fits in that category. Okay. Something else on the value scale in a more positive direction, to qualify. Obviously, suffering, double suffering, would be something worse to choose. Yeah, so double suffering is in the really don't choose that one. Okay. So I think that's enough. So, it's not a very good vantage point over here for viewing. I should have sat in front of the flowers. That was just dumb, stupid of me. Because I have them here, and I should have put them to use. But I wanted to sit in the sun. That's what I was doing. Okay, I remember now. But yeah, the rain beat the hell out of them. But, maybe we can have a day without a bunch of rain and storms and stuff. They can have a brilliant comeback. But I really can't complain too much. Except there's no butterflies. I'm going to get the camera out to photograph the butterflies, and nothing's happening. Even one of the white marigolds, I was really doubtful I was going to be able to grow from seeds, but that one did okay. So I got a couple of them to grow. Be interesting to see what kind of seeds I get out of them, because they're going to cross with all the oranges. And so I should get a ton of varieties out of them. Probably no, hopefully I'll get some purebred white ones. Well, they're really yellow, but they're a very light yellow. So anyway. Sorry, this video was longer than I thought it should have to have been. But, it's not bad. Nice, relaxing kind of video. My butt's wet. Tomatoes are tomatoing to some extent, but it's kind of The deers are right on the verge of getting them, but there's some little tomatoes growing there. Yeah, the plants here didn't do as well as I had hoped. But, you know, shit happens. The main tomato crop is over there, and they're doing okay. So, I mean, they got nailed once by the deer, but hopefully it'll be okay. Yeah, I got these daylilies came up. Usually the deers eat these, but these are really, I mean, for daylilies, they're really quite fancy. I mean, they're like double, triple flowers or something. But they really are quite, I mean, that's a lot of flower for a daylily. I mean, you know, it's like 3 flowers in there. Really quite nice. But, you know, the deers have been eating them for years. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't like roosters. It's just kind of funny that they didn't eat this one. Because, you know, they eat them. They eat them all. And such. So, I think that's all. Hibiscus, got some of those growing now. See the tree types. We got the 2 kinds of hibiscus. Got the tree bush types here, and these ones always have, they're trees actually, but they're nice flowers. So they're almost. It's nice having the purple kind right next to the white kind. But most of the ones I have are crosses, so some of them come out pink and different colors. So. And then I got the bush type, but yeah, they just haven't even started flowering yet. These all flower. Be quite nice. Sorry, enough of that shit. Look at all these. I'm gonna do some yard weeding. Hey, look, there's a cat. Huh. Usually doesn't sit in the front yard. I don't know if I like that. Get in trouble, but yeah, it's shady there. I guess that's it. So anyway, enough of a video, I guess. I mean, I could drag it out a little bit longer. That's kind of asshole ham. See, these are the non-bush types. See, the tree types are in there, but these little bush, these come up every year type. So they die every year, but they have huge flowers. So that'll be nice. They'll be flowering soon. This is a good idea of mine, this little pole thing. See, I put up like 3 or 4 of them. But, the deers will nip off these lower ones now eventually, but I think this will work out nice once things really start flowering. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be a failure. Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. I'll go over to something that was other where the deer got something else. I mean, they ate the stuff in there, which was kind of disappointing. But I had a really good zinnia over here. I mean, it was really big. I don't like the color much. I mean, it was a nice color. I mean, magenta isn't terrible. But the flower was just monstrous, and it stayed really low. But they, when they ate the other flowers, they broke the plant. The plant's dying. That's the only one I got like that grew really low. So that's sort of disappointing. So they keep doing this stuff. Keep making a mess. And my cucumber's yellow too. I don't know why my cucumber's gone yellow. I mean, it's been yellow the whole time it's growing, which is kind of irritating. I don't know why it's yellow. Why is it yellow? I mean, they usually turn yellow when they're rotting or something. It's very firm, so I think it's okay. But I don't know why. Why is it yellow? It shouldn't be yellow. It should be going green. So anyway, at least that's my recollection, is they grow green, and if you leave them out too long, they turn yellow. But maybe I'm misremembering. I haven't grown cucumbers in a while. But look at that. Look at all these flowers. Flowers everywhere. Quite nice. Anyway. So, that's enough now. Until the next time. And such.